What is up guys, I hope everyone is doing well. Today we are going to check out the Zotac GTX 1080 Ti Amp Extreme Edition. So big ass name aside, this is probably one of the best cards that you can get on the market right now. Everyone knows if you want a card that has been pushed to the limit, excuse the pun, then the Amp Extreme is where it's at. So with that said, let's jump in and take a closer look at it. So when you get the card out of the box, you will likely be blown away by how large this thing is. It's freaking huge. It's that huge that it will take up 2.5 slots in your PC, so be sure that you have the extra room before picking this up. If I stick it next to my MSI GTX 1080, you can see that this Amp Extreme just makes it look like a toy. This thing is built like an absolute tank. For those who love exact measurements, it's 325mm by 148mm by 56mm, so definitely large. Design wise, I am certainly digging the look Zotac have went for this time round, with the front of the card featuring a free fan design in a nice matte black shroud with 2 silver accents painted to look like metal, and it definitely looks the part. Speaking of the fans, these will not spin up until the card hits around 60 degrees, just like we have seen on other partner cards, so it will be nice and quiet while it's sitting in your system. Around the sides of the card you will find the RGB strips that I will show you when we get this in the system, and of course we have the usual push the limit sign embossed dead centre. Taking a look at the top of the card, the part that most of us will see while it's in the system, we have the RGB Zotac logo, and like every other partner Ti card this year, we have the GeForce GTX logo. Taking a look at the back of the card, we have that awesome metal backplate, but this year round, instead of going for that yellow that didn't fit anyone's build, Zotac have opted to go for a more stealth with the black, which I am definitely thankful for, as it will sit nice in probably any system. There is also another RGB Zotac logo on here, so plenty of branding to be found. In terms of display connections, Zotac have 5 to offer, with 3 DisplayPort 1.4s, an HDMI 2.0B and a dual link DVI, something the reference design cards did exclude. Last of all, to power this monster you will need 2 8-pin connectors. So for those who love specs, let's take a look. With this card you get 3584 CUDA cores, 11GB of GDDR5X memory and a 352-bit memory bus. With the Amp Extreme cards, Zotac do try to squeeze every bit of power out of this card so you get the best of the best straight out of the box, and you will get a base clock of 1645MHz and a boost of 1759MHz, and the memory clock is 11.2GHz. So just because I love to play around with these cards, I did test to see how much further I could push it, and I was able to get a plus 35 on the core clock and a plus 575 on the memory clock, giving us a core of 1670MHz with a boost of 2062MHz and a memory clock of 12354, which is pretty sweet. So you may be thinking that a plus 35 isn't really a lot, but do remember Zotac push these cards as far as they can to give you a great experience out of the box. So I was lucky to get what I got, so I'm definitely looking forward to showing you guys the results. If you're interested in temps, the card idles at around 38 degrees and going up to around 68 degrees while at full load, so the temperatures are absolutely fine thanks to all those heat sinks and the free fan design. So before we jump into the benchmarks, let's take a peek at the RGB lighting. So as you can see, it's controlled via Zotac's Firestorm software. If we jump into the Spectra tab, we can control all the aspects of the lighting we wish and set each of the free zones up separately. As expected, we have all the usual millions of colours to choose from, along with modes like static, breathing, cycle and wave, etc. that we have seen before. But interestingly enough, we can also set up modes for when the GPU is active and when it is idle. For example, you can go ahead and have a static white colour for when the card is idle, and then it can change to red when active. I'm not sure how many people will use this, but it is a nice option to have, and if you're interested in seeing when your card is actually running, it could come in handy. Okay, so let's jump into the benchmarks, as that's what's really important here. In the test system, I have a 7700K clocked at 5GHz, the Asus Z270 Maximus Hero motherboard, and 32GB of Corsair Vengeance LED RAM clocked at 3000MHz. So let's get the generic benchmarks out of the way first of all. I ran Firestrike Ultra and the Amp Extreme achieved a score of 7,311, and as you can see, if we compare this online, it is way up there with the best. Moving on to the Heaven benchmark, I ran this at 1440p with the Ultra preset and we achieved a score of 4,395 with an average of 174.5 FPS. So moving on to gaming, in Battlefield 1 we have the Ultra Quality preset and DX12 enabled, and of course we are running this at 1440p and we are seeing an average of around 149 FPS, while jumping over to 4K showed us around 81 FPS. Moving over to Doom, we ran this in OpenGL with the Nightmare preset, and at 1440p we were able to hit that 193 FPS, so it's definitely safe to say this runs like a champ. Moving on to 4K, we saw the frames drop to around 98, but again, super smooth gameplay to be had at both resolutions. Hopping on to GTA 5, we set everything to max with 2x MSAA and DX11 of course, and at 1440p we hit around 103 FPS, while at 4K we saw it dip to around 81, but again super smooth at 4K with no issues at all. So last of all, hopping on to Metro Last Light at 1440p, we hit around 136 FPS, and pumping things up to 4K saw the FPS drop to around 83. Okay, so overall you can see that the Amp Extreme is an absolute beast of a card, more than capable of 4K gaming if that is what you're looking for. But of course all this power does come with a cost, and that cost is around £829 here in the UK and around $759 in the US, so it's definitely not cheap. I'm definitely more happier with the design this year round. It definitely looks a lot better than the yellow backplate that we've seen on last year's Amp Extreme, so definitely a thumbs up from me. So if you're looking for one of the best 1080 Ti's out, then I would definitely check this out, but I guess you'll have to start saving that allowance now, or I don't know, start selling lemonade or whatever you guys do to make money. So if you have any questions about this card or anything that I missed, let me know down below and I will definitely get back to you. As always guys, thank you so much for tuning in, stay safe, be kind to each other, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.
Those were down cameras.